and the applications of ESR regulations, relevant activities as per the cabinet decision, and we will go through with the ESR brief snapshots and summary of relevant activities, SIGA and non-SIGA, the core income generating activities. We will discuss on it. We will shed some light on it. Then the requirements to meet ESR test, notification, and the timelines and test dates. And finally, we will review about important notifications which licenses has to make with their jurisdiction or the authorities who has issued the license. We will give a room and time for question and answer session as well, and it can be leave on the chat box, and we will able to answer to you. And if some complicated cases, we can discuss over the email which will be provided to you. So moving forward, I would like to thank the speakers which we have today in the session. Mr. Shafiqur Rahman is the partner at Ahmed Al Akbari Chartered Accountant and Certified Public Accountant as well. And we have Muhammad Ashur. He is a head of internal department in Arab Bank for Investment and Foreign Trade, Al Masarraf, and he's holding postgrad degree in finance and banking, and he's holding other certification like certified internal auditor and CFP and more. And thank you very much for joining us today and giving us brief input about ESR. Thanks for joining us. So I would like to start with Mr. Shafiqur Rahman to give us the brief overview of economic substance. Thank you very much. Please, over to you, Mr. Shafiq. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Thank you, all the participants. I really appreciate for all the participants to joining us to understand about the ESR. And we will definitely learn a lot during this fruitful session. So let's see and understand what is the ESR. From today's session, we will learn about the basic concept of the ESR, what is the application of the ESR, and what is the compliance of the ESR. Then we will go to the question and answer according to our industrial sector wise. So start from the basic things. What is the ESR? So ESR from regulatory point of view, all the countries in the Middle East are members of OECD, which is we speak as a BEPS, and also which are bound the members to implement certain minimum tax and other reform, including country by country reporting, which is we speak as a CBSCR. So what is the economic substance reporting? So UAE Cabinet issued, first of all, the Ministerial Resolution number 31, and then there is a 58 and 215 and the regulatory guidance for understand and the compliance of the ESR. If we look at the background of ESR, in December 2017, European Union released list of non-cooperative jurisdiction for tax purposes. If you see April 2019, UAE joined to ESR compliance by issuing the Ministerial Resolution 31. And the application will start from January 2020. And everyone we knows that the deadline for notification is 30th June 2020. And then the reporting will be in December 2020. From ESR countries point of view, there are a couple of countries you can see in a list: Bahamas, Bahrain, BVI, Bermuda, Cayman Island, and Isle of Man and Jersey. If you look at from map point of view, you can see that how the things are moving. The ESR compliance is coming to the new countries, and in especially Middle East, after the Bahrain, UAE is the next country. From ESR application, we can see that any company, any entity, or any organization having the relevant activities, which we will discuss in detail, fall from the free zone, onshore or offshore which fall under the activities of these relevant activities, they have to comply for the ESR. What sort of the activities? I can read out for you. We will discuss in next slides. For the full detail, the banking, insurance, the fund management, lease finance, headquarters, shipping, holding company, IP and distribution and service center. Now look on this slide. It is giving more comprehensive detail for our understanding. For easy understand, ESR introduced on 30th April 2019, which I already discussed, resolution number 31. If we category to the from relevant activity point of view, we can define its two type of the categories. Number one is who are subject to the regulation and who are exempted. As per our understanding, by studying the resolution, all UAE onshore companies, free zone company or UAE offshore companies, they will fall for the ES compliance. From exemption point of view, entities directly or indirectly owned by 51% or more by UAE government, both federal and local, will be exempted. Now look at this slide from relevant activity point of view. The most important point here, we will consider all relevant activity from substance over form without any threshold. Now, briefly understand ESR from lessons point of view. We will have two type of the thing. One is the relevant activity, another one is the non-relevant activity. So relevant activity, we can take another sub-classification, which is CIJA, core income general activities, and non-CIJA, non-core income general activities. So relevant activity we will see from three aspects. One is from substance over form, another one multiple reporting, another one is duplicate reporting point of view. So here we understand we will not see lessons on activity basis, we will see lessons on the basis of substance over form. Now look at these slides for the more detail and understanding. Summary of relevant activities. A first person who wanna see means his companies fall under the compliance of ESR or not, he have to see the relevant activity and the core income generated activities. Non-core income generated activities, which is the backside office function or handling. So I will leave this banking business to Mr. Ashur. He is an expert in banking. He will talk in detail with you. The insurance business, which is getting the core income generated activities from the predicting and calculating risk, insuring or reinsurance agent, underwriting insurance and reinsurance. Next, investment fund management business, we can see as a taking decision on holding and selling of investment, calculating a risk and reserve, taking decision on currency or interest in fluctuation, and hedging position. Similar like IP, which is more technical and quite difficult to understand in first instance, where IP is a patent or an asset that is similar to patent, which known as research and development, non-trading tangible, including a trademark, branding, marketing, distribution. Other than this IP, there is a high risk IP, which is additional activities. What type of the additional activities? Like a development and subsequent exploitation of an IP assets, acquisition by third parties, and subsequent exploitation and protection of the IP assets. So carry on the ancillary trading activities through which the IP assets are exploited, leading to the generation of income from third parties. Now, if we see from lease finance business, which cover the agreeing fund terms, identifying and acquiring assets to the lease in case of leasing, setting the term and duration of any financing or leasing, monitoring and revising any agreements, managing any risk. So these all activities, core income general activities covered by the lease finance business. In respect of the headquarter business, any activities which is relating to management decision, any activities which are relating to incurred operating expenses on behalf of group activities, similar like coordinating group activities, it will come under the umbrella of the headquarter business. People, they have a lot of confusion about shipping business. I have received a lot of questions, especially people, they are giving cargo clearing services. So for them, they have to understand the core income general activities like shipping business. Either it's carrying a managing crew, including hiring, paying, and overseeing crew members, overhauling and maintaining ships, overhauling and tracking shipping, determining that goods to order and when to deliver them, organizing and overseeing voyages. Holding company business, all activities relating to that business. All the profession people, they know what is the holding company. That's why I will talk only the core income generating activities. The core income generated activities in holding company business shall be those activities associated with the income generated. The last activity, which is quite tricky, a lot of people, they have a lot of question, especially to understand the connected person, foreign connected person. This is called a distribution and service business. Distribution and service is handling two type of the things: distribution of the goods and distribution of the services. So in shape of the goods, transporting and storing components, parts, material of goods ready for sale, managing inventories, taking orders, or providing consulting or other administrative services. For easy understanding, anything you are buying from foreign connected person out of UAE and bringing in UAE, and after that you are exporting to out of UAE and recording in your company is a core income generated activities. This will be common in the umbrella or a compliance of the distribution. And for the services business, if any entity UAE based recording core income generating giving services to any foreign connected person out of UAE, that will also under the compliance of ESR. So let's understand what are the requirements to meet the ESR test, because we are now entering to the execution point of view. So we have to understand what Article 6 says in respect of the class 2. A licensee must meet the EST in relation to relevant activity in the following cases. Number one, if the licensee conduct core income general activity (CIJA) within a UAE, or if the licensee and its relevant activity are being directed and managed in the UAE. Or the number three, having regard to the level of relevant activity the licensee has, he have to look in a detail a sufficient number of the qualified full-time employees, or adequate level of expenditure on outsourcing to third-party services providers, adequate operating expenditure incurred by in the UAE. And finally, you have to also see adequate physical assets in the UAE. So such third-party services provided activities, implies expenditures, and premises are in UAE and are adequate. This we have to see, means if the activities conducted by the staff itself, or if it is outsourced, that should be under the supervision of the relevant person having lessons from relevant entity. So the next slide, we can see that on behalf of the direct management, how we have to satisfy, these are the following conditions we have to meet. Number one, the board of meeting in UAE is adequate, frequency as needed for decision making. Adequacy depends on the level of the relevance activity. However, at least one meeting shall be held in UAE in the financial year. Additional meeting requirement as per the memorandum or the article association, how they define from company to company point of view. Financial people, they also understand the meaning of the quorum. So quorum should be as per the memorandum of association or article association. Similar, like minutes of board of meeting is recorded and signed in minutes register, and board of meeting shall record the strategic decision at the meeting. They have to look in detail, means what type of the decisions are there and who is going to take that decision and how they are going to take that decision. They have to be recorded in their strategic decision. Similar, the board of director have the necessary knowledge and expertise to discharge the duties of the board. The minutes of all BOD meeting and the record of the licensee are kept in UAE. These were the main condition from management point of view. So now let's see from the resources point of view how the relevant activity to third party services provided. How? Number one, the licensee is able to demonstrate adequate supervision of the outsource activity. Means the activity by the outsource should be under the supervision of the demonstrate person. So the outsource activity must be conducted in the UAE, means out of UAE it is not apply. The economic substance of services providers will not be counted multiple times by multiple licenses when evidencing their own substance in a UAE. Outsource must not be used to discount ESR test. We will discuss in detail. Now everyone is worried and thinking from the notification point of view, as the 30th June is the deadline. So let me share with you from notification point of view how we have to understand which company fall under the notification compliance of the ESR. So let's see who need to notify and by when. A licensee that undertakes a relevant activity, irrespective of exemption, or has not earned income from the relevant activity, during the relevant financial period, need to submit a simple notification with its regulatory authority. What is the regulatory authority? We will see. But for the simple understanding, regular authority means who have issued the relevant license. The due date for filing the ESR notification, many regulation authority, they have given their own deadline, but the final deadline is the 30th June as specified by most of the regulatory authorities. So what information to be submitted to regulatory authority? Till now, there is no any specific form or specific guidance. Only the main points has been given, means how we have to notify, what sort of the information we have to mention in the notification. So we have to mention the entity, either it's carrying a relevant activity or not, whether or not all or any part of the licensee gross income in relation to relevant activities subject to tax in a jurisdiction outside UAE. And then finally, we have to mention the date of the end of its financial year. So the time, form, manner of the notification will be specified by the regulatory authority. We have seen that a lot of authorities, they have given the guidance on their websites, and then they have also given the guidance how to submit the form and what is the manner and what is the requirement. Every relevant license holder, they have to see. Now we have to see from compliance required for licenses. Let's see entities that are not licensed to and do not carrying out relevant activities. The first thing, if any entity which is not carrying any these 9 activities, and they do not carrying any, they don't have the license, they don't have to fulfill any notification and reporting requirements. Another options, entities licensed to carry out relevant activities, but they didn't conduct any activities, they will have same thing. Other than this, all entities, including branches, subsidiary, associates in a group companies, they have to submit the notification which is applicable with effect from 1st January 2020. And entities carrying out relevant activity but not deriving in a UAE, so they have to submit the notification and reporting requirement. As we discussed, the reporting period is the manually, so the 2019 period will be finished on 31st December 2019. In respect of this one, we have already discussed the exempted entities, which is more than 50% government owned activities by the federal government. These are the exempted companies. So from our all discussion, we can see all economic substantive tests we can divide in a 3 type of the substantive test. Number 1, the actual present test, then the activity test, and the adequacy test. A lot of people, they have confusion, means they don't understand, means either which period they are going to fall in their lessons from timeline dates. Let me clear in a very simple. If you see this snapshot of the presentation, if any company earlier than 1st January 2019 and still live, working, operating, the reporting period will be from 1st January 2019 to 31st December 2020. In case a company established in 30th April 2019, so we have to add 12 months from the date of incorporation. So the period for company compliance 30th April plus 12 months, so 30th March will be the period. After that they have to submit the notification, and after 1 year of that period will be the return period. I think you have more clarity to understand. A lot of people they are confused. A company established during January 2019 and 20, December 2019, they understand either they are following, if they are following, how they have to calculate. So they have to see the date of incorporation and add the 12 month. They can see after 12 months they have to submit the notification, and similar they have to comply with the ESR return. Here I would like to share with you the important clarification. A lot of peoples or owners or entity decision maker, they have assumption that if they have UE tax residency certificate, they don't have to follow the proof of ESR. So let me tell you, it is not there. ESR is different and tax is a different. Tax is controlled or monitored by a federal taxation authority. On the other side, I will clear one thing. A lot of people, when they see their lessons, they see their activities in the lessons, and then they first instance look at the relevant activities, and then they analyze we are not following. It is not as ESR application is not as per direct trade lessons activity. It will be on substance over form approach. This thing you have to be keep in your mind while studying for the compliance of ESR. Let's see what type of the offenses of non-compliance. Article 9 clearly defines the competent authority shall exchange information to whom the jurisdiction where the parent company resides, or where the ultimate parent company resides, or where the ultimate beneficial owner resides. On the other side, if you are failed to meet the economic substance in first year, you can read the penalty is 50,000. Second year, you can say multiply by 300,000. Then the year 2, and similar. The last, if you see that if they are failure to notify, the minimum fine start from 10,000 to 50,000. So now, on my point of view, is the time for action. Being a professional or being a owner of the company or being a representative of the company, you have to see for the new ESR what he have to do. He have to look at the relevant authority from where the license has been issued. He have to see, I'm sharing just example basis to understand, means how I have to see, means which authority I'm dealing, what is the due date, and further guidelines we have to follow them. We have to fulfill the compliance of the relevant authority, and we have to report to the relevant authority. I have just given few mentions, like a banking business, we have to report to central bank, insurance business, insurance authority, investment fund management business. There is a securities and commodity authority. So they have to see which authority issue the license. They have to notify, or they have to submit the return to that relevant authority under the Ministry of Finance. The last but not least, how AAA can assist to understand impact assessment on entities compliance with ESR, to perform the following task. Assess what relevant activities have been likely to be performed during the financial period. Being a professional, as I discuss, as I share with you frankly, we have to see from relevant activity as per lessons or as per substance over form. So we have to assess amount and type of income earned from the relevant activity. Going forward, audited accounts plays an important role. We financial people knows how we have to see from their principal activity and other activities. We have to conduct board meeting with the quorum of directors present in UAE, documents minutes of these meeting, entire secretarial task can be outsourced with the reporting outgoing compliance, analyze all the expenses. Being an auditor, we have to see the expenses relating to that entity relevant activity, analyze and documents key UAE based assets, maintain relevant documents such as agreement and financial records, analyze roles and responsibility of employees towards the relevant activity. We have to also examine relevant outsourcing agreements, any other aspects that may help lessons to demonstrate sufficient economic substance in UAE for a relevant financial period. The last, assist in filing ESR notification annual report with the regulatory authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shafiq, for your insights and knowledge and sharing with us. Now, I would like to highlight and invite Mr. Muhammad to show his presentation and some knowledge on banking as well. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum salam.
First of all, I would like to, of course, extend my word of thanks to Ahmed Al-Akbari, of course, company for this opportunity, and also Mr. Shafiq as well for this invitation, plus actually for this comprehensive detail has been given for ESR, which is a new regulation has been, let's say, launched, which is conducted or has been conducted. Actually, for me, that I will, of course, that I will, as Mr. Shafiq said, we will come across banking sector, which is one of the main relevant activities has been mentioned in ESR recently. And even if you will see that in the list has been ranked #1, this means the first activity has been mentioned, banking sector. I think that because of the importance of this activity, plus I think the size in our, let's say, environment market right now. If I will come across to definition, or let's say what they are meaning by banking business. Now, could be it's mean that it has been mentioned in ESR, let's say regulation or interpretation could be in a simple way, of course, that just to define, the banking sector in a proper way. We know that the banking is, if we are going to the banking sector, which is a huge line of activities and the product, but here they are, let's say, defining the banking business as a banking business, which is mean the business of accepting deposit of money, which is a simple definition that accepting deposit of money which may be withdrawn or that are repayable on demand or after a fixed period of time. You know that the deposit normally they have, different maturity days, which is something, as you know, all of you, that there is something as a current account, there is a saving account, and then we have a fixed deposit account, in addition to other, like we call it call account, for example, which is each one of these accounts have different, let's say, terms and condition. Also that we can withdraw these by checks or otherwise any source of withdrawal, and the use of such deposit either in a whole or in a part in the making a given of loan. Of course, that banking sector normally when they are accepting these loans, we know that they will reinvest these loans. Of course, how they were reinvesting, of course, that one of the main activity in banking sector, which is considered as a backbone of any banking sector, this is a credit, let's say, product or line, like a loan, advances, overdraft, all of these products, which is under one umbrella, they call it a credit activity or a credit portfolio. Of course, they are classifying these portfolio under funded and non-funded, or direct and indirect, which is direct, as we mentioned, loan, advances, overdraft, while indirect or non-funded, like a guarantees or LCs, letter of a credit. And the making of investment, definitely the investment normally we have a specialist department normally in this, which is dedicated for this, let's say, objectives, mainly like treasury department, which is mainly they are investing and they are dealing with our, let's say, banking business, of course, of our correspondent, even that they are dealing investment on behalf of on behalf of the bank or on behalf of the customer as well, in order just to generate the money. Now this one actually, this one of the main let's say definition could be we are coming up. Now also the could be the banking that we have mentioned, one of the banking activities or business activity in details, as we mentioned, which has come across during our definition, that raising fund or managing risk, including credit stress. Of course, this is one of the main activity of banking that, of course, not only to accept these, let's say, you know, that from liability side or asset side, that not only to accepting deposit or to accepting, let's say, source of fund for to the bank, also that how to mitigate the risk. It means that how to manage these, let's say, liability side in a proper way in order just to at the end either to minimize or to mitigate the risk associated with these things. In addition, how to generate, you know, that the maximum income at the end, even that will be reflected, of course, to the stakeholder benefit. The other thing, actually taking hedging position, which is also, as we mentioned, that normally hedging and even capital market. Actually, that and by the way, that we can even that to sort out, let's say, what type of let's say banking we have. We know that there is a, let's say, for example, which is bank deal with individual. They call it retail banking, which is deal with the individual and individual customer. Plus, there is something which is dealing with capital market. They, like we call it investment banking. And there is something which is deal with the corporate or corporate customer. We said, or they're mentioning corporate banking, or let's say in some instances, which is sub or part of that, this is commercial. That's why the hedging, which is one part of investment banking, or this is will be conducted under treasury normally department, which is taking care about this. Plus providing loans and credit or other financial service to the customer. As we said, there is right now, not like before, you know, that the product of banking, which is have a huge and multi product, even that if we are talking about all the levels from consumers, let's say, or at the corporate banking, and especially right now in line with digitalization, you know, that there is online banking service, which is very important right now to rely on, because now there is a lot of, let's say, deals which is done with the customer through online banking right now. Managing capital and preparing report to investors or any government authority or entity, which is this is one of the more the main indicator to the investor in order just to provide him, you know, that our financial position based on our report. You know that there is some mandatory report which is of course that requested by authority, our, let's say, relevant authority like the central bank, or let's say by other investor, or let's say that the listed bank, which is with the, of course, with the like, you know, the financial market, like the way financial market, or addicts like Abu Dhabi financial market, which is these are authority should be reported in order just to give them, you know, a level of satisfaction about that, about the bank position. Now about, let's say, to go to the core income generated activity for banking business. Actually, this is, you know, that has been mentioned by Mr. Shafiq before, maybe a couple of minutes about CIGAS, or let's say CIGAC. Now, what is the core income of the banking business? Now, actually, even in this regulation or ESR regulation has come across on these issue, that in order just to differentiate now, how can, is it this banking, let's say, activity will be under the umbrella of ESR, or this is beyond that? Now that they have mentioned this in order just to differentiate now who is under ESR umbrella. First of all, they mention about raising fund, managing risk, include, as we mentioned, including credit, currency, and interest rate, in addition to accepting deposit from the public. It's mean that if I'm accepting, let's say, a deposit and even reinvesting this in different kind of a product like a credit or a credit in all funding and non-funding, it means there is some activity has been working on. That's why this is one of the core income generating from the bank. Raising fund also including raising capital, issuing bonds, or going to the money market, as we mentioned before. Banking business risk management activity would be aimed at ensuring the capital base of the licensee is not eroded. It means that it's not being failed at the end and not control the cost of fund. The key function and related decision making in respect of these activity are expected to be performed in the UAE, as what has been mentioned by Mr. Shafiq before a couple of minutes. Also that all the source of income should be generated in UAE. This is one of the main, let's say, conditions that under this. Taking hedging position, of course, that where the licensee mitigate risk by taking opposing or offsetting position, the licensee must be able to demonstrate that the related activity and decision making taking place again in the UAE. This means what that I'm talking about, the UAE framework, which is in between that it should be that published, providing loan, of course, a credit or other financial services to the customer. The banking business would be expected to lend or otherwise invest the customer deposit and other available funds. The term customer mean is not limited to individual, of course, but also include corporate and other financial institutions. One more thing, actually, managing capital and preparing report to investors or any government authority with functional relating to the supervision or regulation of such business. The banking sector is highly regulated, as we know that, which is under central bank, let's say, monitored, and even that they are controlling all the sector, banking sector by central bank UAE, and involve various report to regulator and investor. Of course, as we know, there is many of mandatory report should be submitted to the regulatory authority like central bank, even on weekly, monthly, annually, that in order just to one sort of control. The license is expected to perform and oversee its reporting related function and activity in the UAE. This means that, as we said that again, that all the activities should be within UAE. Now, in order just to clarify this, how it's work, now we have an example of that. I have two examples. First one, let's suppose there is ABC Bank, which is UK, which is mean that one of the branches or subsidiary to UK offers current account, saving account, loan, which is mean that one of the UK branch which is working in UAE, or loans, a credit card, and other product and services to individual and corporate customer through a number of branches in the UAE. ABC Bank clearly undertakes a banking business in the UAE and subject to the regulation. It means that such sort of bank and the branches will be under ESR, UESR regulation. Now for the, on other side, if there is one bank like PUKR, for example, in the UAE branch of the investment banking division of the STB banking group, but what the sort of this activity is doing by PQR is making underwriting. This means there is no credit. I'm talking about there is no relevant activity actual. They are underwriting a new debt and equity security, facilitating and advising buyers. It means that like a consultation work, and sellers or merging and acquisition, market financial product, whilst permitted under its UAE investment banking license to accept deposit whose maturities are at least 2 years. PQR funding is limited to borrowing from its head office and from other bank. PQR in this scenario, of course, that will not be considered as a carrying of banking business and be subject to regulation. That's why it's mean that to differentiate between these two things, we have ABC Bank and the BUKR, which is they are differentiating this between two sort of bank or two different type of bank. This is in simple way what we have to define, let's say the banking sector and the activity related and how they are managing. Of course, that if we will go in detail like this, banking activity will need, I think, at least 1 hour to mention all the activities. But now we are trying to even to be in line with this ESR regulation, what they have mentioned. We have summarized now the banking from definition, what they are working and how they differentiate if this bank will be under ESR or not. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed Ashur, for your in-depth knowledge sharing on ESR regulations. Now, moving to question and answer session, I would like to start with Mr. Shafiq and inquire about what is the first reportable financial year end. So, sorry, we cannot hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Hassan. This is the benefit of the technology. Anytime they can mute or unmute us. Once again, I really appreciate for all the participants. It's a very simple answer. The reporting period, January 2019 to 31st December 2019. As I said earlier, if the company established between 2019, let's assume in April, they have to add 12 months to accumulate his period from April to 31st March. So he will calculate his period from 31st April to 31st March 2020. I hope you have the answer.
Thank you very much. Now the next question from Mr. Shafiq again. Who are the regulatory authorities? Kindly please let us know. Thank you.
As I have seen, a majority of people, they have confused. Means either they have to report to DED, they have to report to Ministry of Finance, or they have to report to their relevant free zone authority. As majority of free zone authority, they have received the notification and the compliance requirement and how to register, the format and the portal. So for our understanding, we have to see that the issuing authority of license, that is your regulatory authorities. If there is no, you are not following under any free zone authority, then ultimately you have the Dubai DED, which is Ministry of Economy. And if there is anything, then there is the final authority, Ministry of Finance, under the Cabinet Resolution number 58, mention all authorities and reportable authorities.
Thank you very much. Let me ask one question from Mohammed Ashur. Mohammed Ashur, Mr. Mohammed Ashur, can you unmute? Mohammed Ashur, can you listen me?
Yes, I'm listening. Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much for your very well defined definition of on banking business. So just going in more detail, in banking business, there are several businesses like foreign exchange and exchange houses, and they are doing trading of currencies as well. So a more overall view, how would you say what type of businesses are ESR is applicable to banking? So what are the sectors? If you just give us some general background on it and a general explanation on it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for all attendance as well. Actually, that even if you are going to the, even based on the what the ESR has defined, which is sector has been, will be under the ESR umbrella, actually the regulation apply to UAE offshore, onshore, sorry, and free zone, of course, company, branches, partnership, and other UAE business, of course, form. Refer to the license which is carry out their activity or relevant activity in UAE, for example, like a banking business, as we mentioned, insurance business, of course, that investment fund and management, leasing from business, headquarter business, which is actually has been mentioned by Mr. Shafiq before, and shipping business, holding company as well, and distribution and service center business. These are actually the main, or let's say the main list, which is the sectors has been mentioned from ESR regulation right now.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Shafiq. Do the regulations only apply to UE entities that are a part of multinational group or that are owned by the foreign shareholder? And kindly please also let us know about the offshore free zones as well. How does ESR will apply on it? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. A lot of people, they have confusion. A foreign multinational group or owned and controlled by shareholders, either it's applicable in UAE. So my answer is no. We have all the detailed discussed from the authority website. So assume that all our detail, all our material is from the Ministry of Finance website. So you have to be confident that sharing with you everything from the reliable resources. So from a foreign shareholding prospective point of view, the answer is no. Why? The regulation imposes economic substance regulation on any UE entity which carries on a relevant activity, regardless of whether the UE entity belongs to a foreign multinational group. However, a UE-based distribution business service, like a headquarter business or high-risk IP business, would only be within the scope of the regulation in the UE entity. So for easy understanding, all activities in UAE having a UAE entity will be considered. Your next question means offshore free zone companies subject to the regulation? Yes. If the offshore companies undertake a relevant activity, as per the resolution 31, the law mentioned three entities, authorities. One is the offshore, the second one is the free zone, and other business firm. But now we have received the guidance, and from the guidance, the understanding means any company in UAE having or conducting these 9 activities will be compliance of ESR.
Thank you very much, Shafiq. Over to you, Sahab. What does it mean to be subject to the regulation in terms of income, and what are the tests and procedures to be compliant with ESR? Thank you.
Thank you again. Actually, as we have mentioned that for each financial period in which the licensee earn, let's say, income from relevant activity, it will need to meet an economic ESR, means that economic substance test in relation to that activity. Actually, the economic substance test require the licensee to demonstrate that, for example, the licensee relevant activity are being directed and managed in the UAE, first of all. Second, actually the relevant or the core income generating activities that are being conducted as well in the UAE. And the licensee has, of course, that adequate employees, even that premises and expenditure in the UAE. And in addition to an annual notification requirement as per ESR, of course, requirement, licensee that undertaken and earn income from relevant activity are also required to file an economic substance return within 12 months from the end of the relevant financial period. Just we will take in consideration that even this entity, if they are not generating income, it means that they have failed to generate an income in this, for example, in the period of time, it's not required from ESR to notify or to report to ESR. This is one of the main issues can be highlighted as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Yes, this is very main question coming up, that if you don't have any income in the relevant period, reportable period, then you just need to file notification. No need to do submit the substance report. So
Exactly.
over to you, Mr. Shafiq. How do you judge? Is it enough to review the commercial license of the entity and the activities mentioned on it? Is it self-sufficient to analyze or assess whether it does come under the scope of ESR or not? Thank you.
Uh, as I discussed earlier, majority of people, they see the relevant activity from the lessons point of view. We understand, we discuss today, we have to see the activity from substance over form. From the substance over form, the ESR application will be there.
Thank you very much. And over to you, Mr. Mohammad Ashur Sahab. Could you please let us know either investment funds subject to the regulation as a holding company business? Thank you.
Uh, Thank you actually for this question. Of course, no, because actually, that the scope of these, activity completely different, which is mean an investment fund, of course, it will not be considered as a holding company business at the end, different because actually they have different scope of activity. That way it will not be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Shafiq. Who is exempt for the regulations? Please. Thank you.
It is very simple question as we discussed. If there is any entity under the umbrella of federal or the government authority, more than 51% holding will be exempted.
Thank you. To Muhammad Ashur, does a holding company business need to demonstrate economic substance, and at what level? Thank you.
Exactly. Actually, yes, it should be because you know that the holding company, one of the list, let's say, entity that should be. And however, that the holding company business is subject to produce substantial requirement, which is mean that as well that to comply with the existing reporting compliance, of course, requirement under the regulations applicable to the licensee, and have an adequate employees and physical assets, for example, the premises. A holding company business is not required. It means that to be directed and managed in the UAE, unless otherwise, as we mentioned, that to provide it for under the rule and regulatory of any regulatory authority, or to have demonstrate adequate expenditure in the UAE. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much, Muhammad Ashur. Thank you for your answer. Just moving to my next couple of questions to Mr. Shafiq. Um, if the licensee is getting all the income from outside the UE, so is the license exempt from the regulation, or does he need to assess his applicability of ESR? Thank you.
Can you repeat the question? I have seen a lot of question. Can you just repeat so I can understand?
Yes, the question is that if the income generating is all outside of the UE, okay, and whether this license needs to go through with the assessment of ESR, or is it exempt?
No. License is not exempt from the regulation. Income from a relevant activity for which the license needs to demonstrate economic substance in the UAE includes all income. All income means that is generated by the license outside of the UAE as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And the very last question, does a license need to hold board meetings in the UE? And just describe what is the level, or what would be the frequency of having board meetings in the UE? Thank you.
It's also a very good question. I was reviewing a lot of questions. There was Mr. Sam, he asked question, UAE, there is exchange. Either they have to report to their relevant authority or to the Ministry of Finance. So as I said earlier, you have to see from your license point of view, the authority issued the license, you have to be reported there. Or if there is anything, then ultimate the authority, Ministry of Economy. Last time, one of our expert, Mr. Nafar, he shared one of client he discussed and shared to Ministry of Economy one question, because a lot of people, they didn't receive any notification from Ministry of Economy. So Ministry of Economy has given the email address. If any entity involved in these 9 activities, they have to be reported to the Ministry of Economy, that the relevant given email address. And then in future, how the more detail will come, we will share. So I'm coming to the question you asked me regarding the board of directors meeting in a UAE. Yes, an adequate number of board meetings should be held in UAE. So what is considered to be adequate number of board meeting will depends on the nature and extent of the relevant activity being undertaken by the licensee. For each board held in UAE, number one, we have to see the quorum of directors must be physical presence in the UAE. The meeting minutes must be maintained and signed in the UAE. And the last, directors attending the board meeting must have the necessary skill and expertise to discharge their fiduciary duties. A holding company is not required to be directed and managed in UAE except where there is a requirement of the relevant licensing authority. Hope you have the answer.
Thank you very much. One more question I would like to take from Mr. Shafiq from the chat box from Mr. Javed. Is the company which is trading in UAE, it is 100% owned by the local, and they are importing the goods from EU and selling to US. No, basically they are importing from EU and US to sell the goods in UAE. So does they fall under the scope of ESR?
It's a good question. It's come in the relevant activity of distribution of goods and services. In distribution of goods and services, there is 2 things. One is distribution of goods. Here is the point to be understand. If you are importing out of UAE anything from foreign connected person and storing in, as per the law says, importing from the foreign connected person, storing in UAE, and then you are exporting to out of UAE. So ESR application will be there. Contrary to this distribution of services, if you are giving services to your foreign connected person out of UAE and recorded in your books of accounts, so ESR application will be there.
Thank you very much. So concluding for all conversation today, I could say that during the assessment, there is no one fit shoe. So you need to assess on the tailored basis with your circumstances and your business model rather than our general questions. So we can help you with it. And we have an email address shown up here, shafiq@aaa-cs.com, where we can happy to answer your questions and can discuss on tailored basis your cases and the business models. So thank you very much for Mr. Shafiq for having insight information and Muhammad Ashur for your very well defined knowledge about banking business. Thank you very much all the participants to be with us during this session. Thank you very
Hassan,
much. Yes.
can I say, because there are a lot of relevant activity required the detail,
Yes.
we will wait for the feedback of the participant. I wish we can continue the series of like there is tricky IP and there is a lease, and we will try to have more session with particular relevant activities.
Yes, sure. So we will be running up each activity coming under the relevant activities. So we will run the session detailing each activity and how does it imply to you. And moreover, we will be giving remedial to non-compliance, which already being the company which is facing or the challenges for restructuring, because most importantly at the end of the day it will drive the restructuring of your entities and how to comply with the rules and regulations implemented under the umbrella of ESR. So that's all. Thank you very much, Mr. Shafiq, for adding that knowledge of series, and that's all. Thanks a lot for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.